Langston Hughes was one of the most important points during the 1920s at American as an African American point. During his early life, Langston Hughes' poems are more like lyrical poems which talk about the culture he has seen during his earlier trips and adventures. His topics are usually talking about the African American and the African cultures. Then, after he became a really famous writer and poet, he become more talking about the situation and the social problem have been faced by the African American people. Also, he have been speak for the low class people like working class, and even become radical at the end. So, to talk about why Langston Hughes' style have been changed so much, we need to begin with his family background first. His family is so complex. Here is a diagram I found from his biography Bixie. You can see he is not a pure African American and also contains several different bloods. Like you can see his mother have the blood of Indian and French, his father have the blood of Jewish and Scotland people. His family's history background was also complex. His grandfather used to be a fighter who had been fight with John Brown, the person who fight for the whole Americans free. So you can see Langston Hughes is not like normal African American who do not have their own roots and culture, and Langston Hughes you can see he know his own family so well and he know this culture, and this is so rare compared to the other people. And at around when Hughes was 6 years old, his mother and father had been divorced. His stepfather is just a laborer, and his original father had gone to Mexico for find work, and actually his father did so well on this and become a so wealthy people. But in fact, Hughes' relationship with his real father was so bad, basically because from his point of view, his father just want to keep wealth, and his father dislike or even hate the poor people and Mexico people. Sometimes even he hate black people, and and because he gone to the Mexico when during his like 17 years old summer holiday, and this trip had been highly influenced himself for a long time. I can describe this later in the later part. So let's talk about Hughes' poems first. Here is one excellent example of one of his most famous earlier work called The Negro Speak of Rivers, which excellent showed how his earlier life and his trip to Mexico with his father influenced of him.
I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
This poem was one of the most famous earlier work of Langston Hughes, and you can see in these poems he used rivers as a symbol to describe the history and the culture of African American peoples, and it just was so excellent and awesome. You can see the logic here because I know rivers, and all the humans cultures are from the rivers, and because the black people, the African American people, and African culture are also born from rivers. So my soul it's just like all the people. So my culture is just like all the cultures, and this is this express a split of everything is equal, and you can see this is because the Hughes is highly influenced by his earlier lives, like his family relationship and the trip of the Mexico, because you can see here he is expressing that we are equal, and which is an opposite opinion which compared to his father's opinion of all the Mexico and black people are just lazy dogs. Although Hugh's relationship with his father becomes so bad after this trip to Mexico, but Hugh still used some way to let his father pay for his come to the university, and so actually his father want to send him to the Europe to become an engineer and help him to develop some his factory at Mexico, but Hughes himself of course want to become a writer, and he had been to the Columbia University, and he just used some way to let his father pay for this. I guess this could be the biggest difference between I and Hughes. You see, we both applied for the Columbia University, and I even prepared this for 6 months, and I failed. Hughes said that he prepared. He even didn't mention how many times he had prepared for this, and he just said he want to go to Columbia University, he want to go to New York, and he just succeeded, and I guess this could be the reason why I cannot become the master. Whatever, after Hughes come to the Columbia University, he actually in fact he escaped from the university just after 1 year, and because he feel Columbia is not a good place, and finally he become a sailor. So this ship is a long-term ship travel between the African and American for the trade, and actually in fact Hughes did so many this kind of ship job in his later life, and he is just seems like began falling in love with this kind of job, because I guess this could because working on a ship is a long-term job which could let you escape from the normal society. Yeah, if I am the Hughes, I may just explain this as this, but I'm not really sure. This just is guessing. But whatever. This travel to the African that Hughes learned so many things and get influenced from by the African culture, and I will give you another example of how he described African culture, and also working on a ship that also helped him observe the lower class life situation, and actually if you will use whole life, you can find at during the most time period of his life, he is a poor guy and live in the low class and work as a worker, and as himself said, never earn over $40 a week, and he only become a little bit wealthy when he gets paid, once he become a great point, and he just later break up with that guy. Okay, soon we will talk about this later. Talk about his another very famous poem, African folk first. Here's the point. So you can see this point is also one of my favorite. He described African culture as the fog and the shoes, the situation of the people really cared this along the culture with a long history, but only want to trade with them, and you can see this. You can see there's a tendency that Hughes is beginning to care the things like African culture, and also this tendency will express expressed more clearly in the later time when we will talk about this soon, and he will also talk about the social problem and become more radical in later. So, in time period between from the 1920s and in the 1920s and before the Great Depression began, the Harlem Depression size just began, and it's this event and suddenly let African American culture become so popular. People just began suddenly love these things, and even they just want to go to Harlem look wow, what's African people usually drink during the night, and the poets and writers like Langston Hughes become also famous writers. Langston Hughes in this at this time they get paid from one guy, and a old woman want to encourage him writing, so he gets I guess he in his biography said a new house, and a car with a driver, and so many other things paid it, and but Langston Hughes soon realized the problem of the Harlem size is even so the African American culture become popular, and himself and some writers become a member of higher class, but in fact the total social stand of African American people didn't have been increased, and even themselves, these famous African American writers still have been limited from some restaurant or several places, and after he realized these big problems, his poems began to reflection these social problems, and even attack those higher class people for encourage or doesn't care these social problems. So let me show you one of my favorite series, which he talking about the world of Astoria, a giant hotel, higher just for higher class joy, and have been banned for the African American people. So you can see he is just so commonly used these satires which you never seen in his past poems, and you can clearly feel the angry and the power from his words and language. He is speaking for the Puerto people, and the African American people have been um, limited from getting into this hotel, and he is also seeing that the higher class people building this big hotel for wasting money and not for helping the poverty people. How could this happen? You can clearly get emotion from it, and this is the point I feel so much from it. And also you can find out what caused this, which is the clearly social problems he found and he get from the whole society, and he just choose in these poems, and but also the saddest things is well, in the just few years after the Great Depression, the Langston Hughes influence of his power is become a little bit lower in the later, and actually those higher class also have become higher damage in this time because the Great Depression, and that's a hard time later, but still Langston Hughes, he's you can see this his style changed, and how his life changed. His style is so great. There's also one thing about Langston Hughes is he really a cruel? I mean, this is a big problem, and there's so many researchers, so many studies about his Langston Hughes, and So now people are both agree Langston Hughes maybe could might be a crow, but he is just so high in this, and they are truly they said there's truly some poems really said Langston Hughes is a crow, but I mean this is really a not objective and pretty sensitive things. I don't want to use those theories to prevent Lansing Hughes is a crow, but I don't think this is really matter here because he is just so rarely talk about this part in his poems, and I don't think a great master will be changed no matter he's a crow or not. I mean, he is a crow, of course, will change so many things for himself, but we already know he's a master, and he is a crow or not cannot change this.